I want to remind everybody my name is Brewster Rhodes, and I'm the co-chair of the Ohio River Recreation Trail with David Wicks, my partner, David Wicks. I'm on the board of Adventure Crew, one of the organizations along with River City Paddle Sports that helped to launch this effort. And I'm real excited to be here with you all. A little bit of housekeeping. Please keep yourself on mute. This meeting is being recorded. So don't say anything you don't want anybody to know you ever did. And if you could, please leave your video on. It's really important that we see who's here and engage with folks in as personal way as possible. So folks, welcome. Today's meeting is really a follow-up to our first annual summit that we held last fall in October, where we had participation from over 200 people from river communities and federal and state agencies and tourism bureaus and local governments and elected officials, city managers and economic development directors from over 60 nonprofit organizations and park districts, and over 60 nonprofit organizations and park districts. For today's follow-up meeting, here's what we did. We went through that entire list of about 1,000 people on our distribution list, and we personally picked out the people who we felt we had a good working relationship with, and we knew were committed to this project, and asked them, just you guys, not the whole crowd, to participate in this meeting today, because we value your what you do every day in your communities and with your organizations and businesses, but we also value your brain power to help us think through the next steps with this project. And the neat thing is, out of the people we put on that list, we had about 85% RSVP. So that just shows that we picked a good list and worked it hard. So we're just grateful. And that list is in the chat. That is, those who RSVP'd are in the chat. It's the first item I think we added at the top of the list in the chat. So you can download that. That's the list of all the organizations that RSVP'd. So today we have folks from at least 29 river communities, 13 park districts and land conservancies. We have 12 tourism agencies in the house, or will in a moment or two. We have 7 economic development offices represented, 17 nonprofit organizations, 8 state and federal agencies, including a wonderful team from both the National Park Service and our friends at the Army Corps of Engineers. We're so grateful for your partnership. We have 3 foundations, we love that, and at least 14 private businesses. So that's very cool. And we also are honored to have our friends Nan Cahall from Senator Rob Portman's Cincinnati office listening in. She's been a wonderful ally. And also Bob Porter, who's been very helpful. Bob is the district director for Representative Massey. So those are really important people to promote what we're all about. So in the feedback from the summit, we saw tremendous interest in this project. Folks were excited about creating a partnership among communities, organizations, and agencies to promote the Ohio River Corridor from Portsmouth all the way down to West Point as a 275-mile linear park, essentially a destination where visitors and residents alike can explore the outdoors while enjoying the culture, history, and entertainment that our region has to offer. And a place where folks can canoe, kayak, powerboat, fish, swim, sail, hike, bike, and camp while exploring historic river towns with unique architecture, movie set main streets, historic sites, annual festivals, riverfront Airbnbs, farmers markets, and one-of-a-kind distilleries. This is important: wineries, breweries, bars, and restaurants, some of which actually float. A place where you can learn about Native American history and culture, the life of early settlers, the Underground Railroad, America's steamboat era, and the birth of the wine industry, which, by the way, started in Vevey, Indiana. Or you can visit the birthplace, or a place where you can visit the birthplaces of 3 U.S. presidents within 36 miles. Nowhere else in America can you do that, even in Virginia, you would think. A place as well where, my gosh, we have festivals up the wazoo, as you know. So any given weekend, especially during the summer, there are dozens of festivals, and many of you are so involved in making them happen, whether it's Thunder over Louisville, Mayor's Hike and Bike Paddle down there, Cincinnati's Riverfest and Black Family Reunion, Madison's Regatta, Jeffersonville's Abbey Road on the River, River Days in Portsmouth and New Richmond, the Pig Out in Maysville Festival, Augusta's Art in the Garden and their own Riverfest, Ripley's Ohio Tobacco Festival, Wayne, Geta Fest, Italian Fest, the Great Inland Seafood Festival in Newport, Rising Suns Summerfest and Catfish Tournament, Covington's Taco Fest and Smoke on the River Barbecue Fest, the Whiskey City Summerfest in Lawrenceburg, Aurora's Firecracker, not Fireworks, Firecracker Festival, and Manchester to Maysville's annual paddle, just to name a few. So these festivals are popping. So participants at the summit urge us to continue our wonderful partnership with our friends at the National Park Service, promote the trail as a destination for adventure for tourists and visitors throughout the Midwest, to develop self-guided theme tours that people can take on their own in their cars or boats or bikes, build our brand, develop signage for every boat ramp and community, further enhance our digital database and mapping, and think through how to make this project sustainable organizationally and financially. So over the past 4 months, we've been working hard to follow up on the feedback we received from that summit. So before getting into presentations from our team and your feedback, which is why we invited you, we wanted to give a quick update on key developments. Number one, since the summit, over 40 communities, organizations, and agencies have become official partners, bringing our total number of official partner organizations, et cetera, to 90, which is unbelievable. They're all listed on our website with their logo and a link through to their website. And if you're not already on there, please, you can sign up. There's a special page on the website to do so, to become a partner. You can see their logos I mentioned, and so please check that out. Secondly, this is really important and great organizationally for our development. We now have an official nonprofit home. So we become the main project of a nonprofit organization, 501c3, called the Ohio River Way, which was started 20 years ago to promote recreation, tourism, stewardship, and economic development along the Ohio River corridor. The Ohio River Way started Cincinnati's Paddle Fest event, as well as our Great Ohio River Swim, both events now managed by Adventure Crew. And over the past few years has raised over $10 million in private and corporate funds to help build a 34-mile off-road bike trail network in Cincinnati called the Crown, much of which is being built along the shoreline of the Ohio River. So also we expanded the board of the Ohio River Way to now include a number of folks from Portsmouth to Louisville who have been key players with the Ohio River Recreation Trail. I'm the new board president, or work, right? And David Wicks with River City Paddle Sports is the new vice president of the board. It's a great and diverse team with the skills we need for financial management, marketing, and outreach, and we will be adding more folks to the board as we go. Now I'd like to turn it over for a moment to my colleague, David Wicks, for 3 quick updates on some other developments since the summit. So David, take it away. Are you on mute, David? Can't hear you. Sorry, folks. Can you all hear David?
Okay, here I am. Sorry very much.
Signed, sealed, delivered.
Technology. You know, I want to just give a brief update on a couple of the projects that Brewster mentioned. As you might know, I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, with the River City Paddle Sports, and you know, I'm an active adventure person, and I really view this whole trail as within the spirit of adventure. You know, how can we think through helping all of us get out on the river, by the river more often? One of the biggest projects that we really have accomplished with the National Park Service are these Rivertown reviews. We finished off 9 of them, and you know, we also worked with the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail, and so when that got put and included the entire Ohio River, we put together the River Trails and Conservation Assistance Program and the Lewis and Clark Trail, and had these Rivertown reviews that just were incredibly successful. This past season, and we're still in the process right now, working with Portsmouth and Maysville and Madison to really look at a variety of projects that could enhance their own towns. You know, the Rivertown Review is made up of a couple projects: a document review, the desktop review, which we look at social media, on-site visits, a community meeting, and then report development. And that report development, John's online right now. He's doing the 3 for our 3 towns, but it's a free service from the National Park Service to enhance outdoor recreation in our corridor. one of the exciting pieces is that every individual town or organization can apply. In working with Andrea Ireland and John and the national office of RTCA, we've been encouraged to apply. And so we have a draft grant that's going to go in by March 1st to continue our work and to follow up with all the river towns and really think about what federal fundings and what systemic work can we do to enhance our overall corridor. And so we're just excited about continuing our relationship with the National Park Service. You know, another component that we have several people online from the Army Corps working with the Ohio River Basin Alliance and Orsanco. The Corps did sort of a recreation gap analysis from Portsmouth on down to West Point, and that report should be done soon. It's in the final review right now in DC. But the interesting piece for me, as they identified sections, you know, the National Park Service has come out and said approximately 6 miles. Every 6 miles, there should be a access point for safety, but also for easy access. And so they've gone through and identified all the different areas, and they're looking for public lands that might be a possible new access point. So it's just really quite exciting. You know, that's my update, and I'll be talking a little bit about the Ohio River Challenge at the end of the session. And I'm really looking forward to hearing what Human Nature and Polar Designs has for our trail. Thanks, Brewster. Back to you.
Thanks, David. By the way, the background of David's face there is the falls of the Ohio, and people used to surf that big, nice wave in open canoes years ago. So it's not a joke.
Just to let you know, Brewster, you still can at certain water levels. So it's Class 4 rapids on the Ohio River. Who would have ever guessed it?
White water on the Ohio. I love it. Okay, great. See, we got it all. So moving right along here, folks. As we started thinking through how we're going to make all this stuff happen, we knew we had to raise some money to bring some professionals to the table to help us with branding, with our digital mapping, with our organizational development, et cetera. And we were so fortunate to have the Hale Foundation, and I see that Eric Abner with the Hale Foundation is on here today. Thank you so much, Eric. The Mishua Farm Foundation was very helpful to us. Robert Edmondson may have been able to make it. I'm not quite sure, but he's been wonderful helping us out. And the Metro Louisville government has made a very generous commitment from their city coffers to help develop this project. So using those resources, we brought 3 firms on board for a short-term deep dive project to help us all move this forward. And we're going to have a short presentation from each of those 3. And we will begin with folks from Collard Design, one of the top design firms in Cincinnati. Have done a lot of design work for trails and for park districts and river events throughout the years. And so Kelly, or who's going to take this over? I'm sorry.
I believe Kelly's called in now.
Okay, great. So wonderful. Let's hear what you guys are recommending and you've come up with in terms of our branding. Excellent work.
Kelly, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
I think she might be having some issues with her call. She had some de-icing issues with her travel. So I can go ahead and get us started, and hopefully she can jump in if connectivity allows for it. So thank you for that brief introduction. So for those of you who are not familiar with Collard, as he mentioned, we are a brand experience firm specializing in building branded environments, signage systems, wayfinding, brand, digital activation. So we wanted to pop this slide up just to kind of give you a brief introduction to that. I am Brittany O'Brien. I joined the Collard team a few months ago, but I've been in marketing and sales for about 9 years now. So I joined as a marketing and sales director for the Collard team, and I was very excited to be a part of this project. As one of the first projects I started working with Kelly on. We can move ahead. Okay, so as part of the work we've done to develop this new brand and what we're going to be showcasing with you today, all part of that is to work through the conversations we've been having around the ORT vision statement and mission statement. So we wanted to make sure that we popped that up here and put that on the screen to talk through with everybody, just so you're aware of what the thought process was as we worked through the development phases. You know, what are some of the aspects we wanted to make sure we brought to life in the brand and the logo design. So the Ohio River Way is an accessible and welcoming recreation corridor with vibrant towns connected by land and water trails. And then we also wanted to, you know, obviously pull in some of the elements that came from the mission statements. So facilitate a world-class outdoor adventure opportunities through partnership that promote healthy recreation, education, stewardship, and economic development for the Ohio River communities. And you'll see a lot of this as we move through to show you where we started, as well as where we are today and what we're excited to showcase for you. But part of that process is looking at what are the existing associations and partnerships. So these are the logos that we've laid out here as examples for part of that discovery process, part of that development process, and what we looked at as we moved from the development phases into what we're going to be showcasing. So looking at those associated organizations in that first column, to some other examples, and then examples for the future use as well. We can move forward. And this is some benchmarks, right? So we wanted to look at what are some other logos that have a river theme to them. So part of the process here was also for us to talk about how we didn't want the sole focus to just be the river, right? We wanted to also make sure that those land and recreation aspects were brought into the logo concept. But these are some examples that we looked at in our discussions in terms of what other logos are incorporating a river right now, and what are some light-themed logos while we were working through those development phases. So we wanted to bring this up just to showcase what some of those logos were. And then also a benchmark of the application, right? So when you're developing the logo, what all goes into that in terms of the color palette, the fonts, and then all the way through to that actual application process. So we wanted to bring that to life here on the slide and just show you a benchmark of the logo, the color and fonts, and then how that's actually being applied to these signage and wayfinding signs here on the right-hand side. And that brings us to the existing brand, right? So where are we at? Looking at that current logo mark here on the left-hand side, and then those aspects that we talked about in terms of the fonts that are currently being used, the colors, the patterns, the photography that are all being used in today's current state, and taking a deep dive look at that and what we want in the evolution of the new brand and the logo that we're going to showcase. So here we are. We want to make sure that we kept on the left-hand side for reference that Ohio River Recreational Trail logo, and then here on the right side in the dark scale, the Ohio River Way logo for the branding update. Now, it's important to us to make sure that we also show you what that looks like in color scale. So it's important that every logo can stand on its own in a dark gray or black color scale, but also what is that going to look like when we bring it to life with color? So here on the left side, we're showing two colors together, but also depending on how we are using this logo, where we're using this logo, we wanted to make sure there's the ability to use that with two colors or even one color based on the application that we're using it in. So we're really excited to share this with you and show you the transition to this new logo, and then how is that application going to look. So if you see here, from the signage to the merchandise to even a digital application of this logo, we wanted to make sure that we show you what this is actually going to look like in real life and kind of paint that picture for you. So we can pause there for a second, we'll pop back, but really we hope to get your engagement in this. We really want to hear from you, obviously walking you through what that development process was, where the thoughts came from in terms of incorporating that land and river into the new logo, and then the application of what that looked like, we really want to hear from you about where you see this logo being used. So we'll hope you'll join us and adding those comments in the chat. And it's something that we can go back and take a look at after the call and reflect on your guys' thoughts on the logo and where you see that being used.
And if I could chip in here, thank you. It's excellent. That also could apply to how you make use of the logo and the reference to the Ohio River Way in your own community's marketing. City of Lawrenceburg makes a big deal on their website about how they are on the Ohio River Recreation Trail, which will become the Ohio River Way. I think they must have found it as a useful way to help promote their community. But it can be integrated into, as I say, not only the websites, but into your own marketing for your community through Facebook, through Instagram, et cetera, your other communication techniques. So if you have any initial reactions to the design, the message that it communicates, put that in the chat. We'd love to hear whether you think we're on the right track or the wrong track with this. We kind of like it, of course. And I see people, I just see Nikki, thank you for you enjoying it. And Bob Lees just said that he would like the colors to be a bit more vibrant. We'll take that into consideration. Bob, thank you for all you do in New Richmond. You're amazing. And Michelle, thank you very much for your input there. Andrea. And let's see, also a big issue here is we've changed the name. That's what we're proposing here today, from the Ohio River Recreation Trail, which we have felt in terms of feedback from folks it takes a long time to say. It takes a lot of space. People get confused with Ohio River Recreational or Ohio River Recreation Trail. The Ohio River Way is a generic, kind of shorter term. It's also the name of the organization that we now are. So what do you all think about this? Any additional feedback, please put it in the chat. We'd love to hear it. We have 100 people on the call right now, which is wonderful. Wow. We made some bets, and I think we just blew everybody out of the water. So Kirsten, thank you. Helpful. So you're welcome to check out what other people are saying in the chat. We'll take all this into consideration as we decide how to move forward.
Hey, Brewster, could somebody go back to the slide that had the logo on it so that we could see it to make comments? Hey, somebody else said that too.
So Jody loves the name of the brand. Thank you. So Jason, thank you for that.
Brewster, this is David
Yes.
Bonner.
Dave?
Quick question on the two of these, and Brittany, maybe this goes back to you. Is the idea, because I'm the blue and the green, that the blue would be placed for those aspects that are more water related parts of the trail of the Ohio River Way, and the green used for land-based wayfinding? Is that the idea between those, or?
I mean, I think we're still definitely talking through that, but that is the vision here, right? Is to incorporate both land and water, where as before it felt very water-based. The logo felt very much focused on the water and the canoe. And as we looked at the development of this new logo, can we pop back to that logo slide? It was really important to us that we looked at incorporating that land aspect and also the sun, so that it could, and the placement of the sun being somewhere that it could either be sunrise or sunset, depending on when you're out there enjoying either the water or the land. So I think the color application and where we use them is definitely the next steps to determine how we're going to do the signage, but certainly the colors were chosen based off of water, land, sun, and things like that. So, you know, it was very important to us that that green was incorporated for that aspect.
Great, thank you.
And I'd just like to know what Luann said, that, you know, way can mean a variety of things, a way of life, a way to get somewhere. And I think that's one of the good things about that simple word, because this project encompasses a lot of different things sort of braided together. So thanks for noting that.
Brewster, I just wanted to make sure people knew that we are saving this chat, and the chat
Absolutely.
is the system for your responses back to our team. So even as we move on to the next presentation by Human Nature, as you think about this, the logo, type it in, you know, we want everybody to, you know, participate, you know, so if you haven't typed in the chat yet, get busy.
Yeah, these are excellent comments. Really appreciate it. And I'm sorry we can't answer all these comments or respond to all of them and questions, but it's very useful feedback. And folks are welcome as well to follow up with us by email. And we'll give you that email address in a moment. But thank you. I mean, we want to have a name that is generic enough that can be used everywhere. The signage could be not only on every boat ramp, but as well along trails in your community, and it'd be up to you all to decide where they ought to be. And as you saw with the Portsmouth example with the signage, that we would also have the mile marker for that location so that it's a safety issue. Hey, I'm at a mile marker so-and-so and I need help. It helped to some extent. It helps certainly with the Coast Guard and others who are familiar with using river miles. So anyway, that's where we're moving.
One other point, Brewster,
Yep.
is that yes, it is a local decision, but there is state funds possibly available to have a systemic approach to placing the signs up and down the river at every site. So that's one of the projects over the next 3 months, is to really secure those state funds to put the signage in for our rollout this summer.
Exactly. We've been working closely with ODNR in Ohio and Indiana Department of Natural Resources, as well as the destination tourism operation. They're both on the line here today. We're so grateful. There's interest at among those two states, and perhaps in Kentucky too, to help us fund the manufacturing and placement of the signs in their states, and their logos, of course, would be part of this as well. So anyway, moving right along. Thank you, folks. This is really helpful. We've had just tons of responses, so it's exactly what we want. And now let me introduce our good friend, Chris Manning, who is along with Sarah Delandro with Human Nature. And those folks have had tons of experience over a long period of time in working with park districts and communities up and down, well, throughout the region, including Louisville, obviously Cincinnati, other communities, helping to develop trails and doing the mapping and the planning. And they're just wonderful partners. So we've asked Chris and his team to help us think through how to develop and build out what OKI has already done, which is an award-winning digital guide to the Ohio River. Many of you have had a chance to look at that. It's on our website, and David Rutter is on the call, and David was the point person for that project up to this point. We've asked Human Nature to help enhance it, to build additional layers, but they will all be retained and maintained by our colleagues at OKI for use by us throughout the region. So Chris, please take it away.
Thank you, Brewster, and good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Manning. I'm the co-founder and landscape architect with Human Nature. And as Brewster mentioned, we've been involved in trail planning, greenways, blueways, parks, and park systems throughout the Midwest. Been involved in Green Umbrella and Paddle Fest and the Ohio River Way since they were very first started. And it's a great honor for us to continue that work with you here today. So while Kolar Design has been working on the branding, we've been working very hard on adding depth and breadth to our mapping tools and having that also inform the brand, inform the story. So we'd like to share some of that progress with you today. Next slide, please. So as Brewster mentioned, you know, we had a really good starting point with OKI's digital guide. And for those of you who haven't seen it, I would encourage you to go to the website and take a look at it. It's very strong. It was a national award winner and really strong foundation for us to build upon. As mentioned earlier, it was very water trail specific, and a lot of the assets associated with that up and down. And as we have evolved our mission and vision statements, have evolved the brand, course, we're looking at a combination of land and water trails and wanted the mapping tools to reflect that. We also, the more research we did, we could see that every community, every county up and down the river had a great constellation of assets and destinations that we could celebrate with different types of connections. And so we wanted to share that with you today. Next slide. So building upon OKI's work, we started to acquire data from other national and regional resources. This is just a partial list of those things. And again, National Park Service has been a great partner with us. The Lewis and Clark Trail, the Corps, other folks have added very graciously and generously to the database. Sarah is going to talk you through more detail on that in a few moments, but just want to thank all these partners for their sharing of data. And what we see happening is we see a braided trail network emerging. And there was a lot of discussion at the summit last fall about different themed tours and being interested in that. And so what we see happening is themes such as history and ecology, recreation and tourism, entertainment, these things really starting to emerge and be visible. And they sort of weave their way down the corridor, crossing the river, touching historic assets, touching entertainment assets. And so it's a very robust braided network, and we're going to ask you for some feedback on that here in a little bit. But we'd like to zoom in because we're also leading to a call for more information. This is kind of a representative color map of where we are in the corridor right now, and starting to again sort of color code some of these different themed corridors. So you can see corridors related to history. Those might be driving tours. You could see corridors related to ecology, and those could be watercraft as well as hiking. You can see the entertainment trails. And so the different colors we're going to coordinate with the work that COLAR is doing, both from a mapping and branding standpoint. So these are speaking the same language. Very early in that process, but just wanted to start to give you a sense of what that might look like. So zooming in a little bit, it was mentioned earlier that the latest Rivertown reviews that we participated in was with Madison and Portsmouth and Maysville. And we just wanted to use Madison as an example case study. As we listened to Madison, they had a lot of interesting mapping that they had done that they were ready to share. They had a cultural assets map already available. They had historic tours for walking. They had ecological and park tours for hiking. And so we very quickly followed up with Madison and got some of that finer grain of information and started to incorporate that into the database, into our mapping tools. And you can start to see how that manifests at the more local level. And what we know is that every community up and down the river and every county up and down the river has this finer grain of content. We just need to get to it. And so this is an example of the water-related resources and the things that are very close to the river: water access points, destinations, campgrounds, lodging, dining, shopping that you might be able to take advantage of. We're also celebrating the tributaries that connect with the Ohio River because they're very important to the network. Next. Scenic Drives. And so again, we have the opportunity to really experience the corridor by water, by car, by bike, by foot. And so Scenic Drives become a really important way to express that too. And again, Madison had an example of the State Route 56 Scenic Byway going through and how that connected some of their assets. And then historic sites. We've been able to layer in some historic sites from the National Park Service. We have a new partner coming on board who's going to help us with Native American historic sites. And we have a lot of information on the Underground Railroad. So just really terrific, again, destinations and features that can start to celebrate along that historic corridor. So history is a very important theme. And then recreation and ecology, you know, we want to shine a light on all the ecological and sort of the green resources of the corridor. You know, there's parks, there's recreation areas, natural areas that are part of this. So again, Clifty Falls State Park, marinas, boat ramps, bike shops and rentals, golf courses, just a whole spectrum of recreational amenities up and down the corridor. So again, speaking to that, those different types of adventures that you can plan like David described. And so with that, I'm going to hand off to Sarah, who leads our GIS and planning at Human Nature, and she's going to talk to you a little bit more about this call for information and how we're adding this depth and breadth to our database. Take it away, Sarah.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Like Chris said, we are expanding on the GIS database that OKI created as an excellent foundation in their digital guide to build this braid and tell the story of the Ohio River corridor. And without getting too much in the weeds, we just wanted to briefly touch and maybe help explain what GIS is, what a database is, maybe to help answer a few questions, again, without getting too much into the detail. But as you see on the slide here, you know, a simple explanation of GIS, a geographic information system, is really the intersection of data and location. And GIS software is used to organize, analyze, and display this data in relation to its location. So if you think about maps, something we use every day, whether it's Google Maps, your navigation, printed trail maps, your online interactive maps, the maps that Chris showed in previous slides for tourism and walking trails, they all use and display GIS data. That's data tied to location to help tell this story. So there's this foundation and there's all this background data that's used to build these visuals that you use every day. Next slide. And so GIS mapping, in order to create the mapping, requires this level of data. And most common data files are called shape files. And those are used to link the location, the XY coordinates of a feature with the data or attributes that give it some more depth and breadth, such as a name of a site, its address, its description, a website. That's all tied to a point or a polygon or a line on a map, and which is really exciting and really informative and helps us tell the story. Shape files can be displayed as points, such as trailheads or an historic site. They can be displayed as lines, such as a trail center line or a road center line. They can also be displayed as polygons, such as a park boundary. And so when we use the term GIS database is just a term used to, or it's a way of assisting us in organizing all of these different types of shape files or data files. So we don't want it to be too, confusing and overwhelming by the terminology. And so this is the exciting part. This is where we kind of we need your help in this call for information. As Chris mentioned, we've been digging in and tapping into all the regional and national resources, but we really need help from the local communities to display and showcase and highlight the unique assets within the Rivertown communities. And so like we saw in the Madison maps, we'd like to advance that on to as many Rivertown communities as we are able. And this will assist the team to expand on the current digital guide, add depth and breadth. And so we appreciate your help and your assistance in this call for information. And so we want to pause here, and we introduce some themes that are prevalent, that are coming out as in part of our research and exploration. And so we want to touch base with you all. We've outlined some of the themes and some of these data points that we are hoping to add to this map to add the depth and breadth. But are there others that you can think of? Please use the chat to include some of your ideas. But yeah, this is where we're asking for feedback, and we'll be reaching out with a follow-up kind of document with our data request. But that next slide there shows how you can my contact information and how you can send that to us, ask any questions for follow-up. So yes.
Hey, Sarah.
So-
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, I was just going to say, Sarah, there were a couple of quick, I think fairly easy questions in here. One from Michael Miller about, is there a website? Is there a way to, get additional information on each point? And correct me if I'm wrong, this is just the sort of the screenshot of a very deep app where you can click on each point and get quite a bit of information about each individual site, correct?
Great. Correct. So right now, the current digital guide does that. On the Ohio River Recreation Trails website, using OKI's data. Now, our working database is not available for public review yet. We're still working on building that and adding that level of detail. But if you want to visit the current digital guide, that will give you an idea of what's existing from OKI's database, as far as all the amazing data that's tied to each point, each line within their online mapping application.
Right. And then another interesting question from Anastasia. How far away from the river are we actually going out to map these things?
So right now we're keeping it within the adjoining counties of each river town community. And so that's kind of like a good, that's we're adopting OKI's kind of methodology there. Yeah, so we're that's kind of a good cutoff, we think, that is making this a little more manageable for us to tackle in the next couple months.
And Sarah, this is David Rudder again. It wasn't just OKI's methodology. That was what we decided in the planning group, that we were going to keep it within that one county.
Gotcha. Thank you for the clarification.
That was a good decision.
And even with that, let's keep in mind, we can't put every key point of interest in, for example, Hamilton County or Jefferson, whatever, it's because they're so huge. And so the idea is that if you're driving along the river, if you're paddling, if you're on a bike, what's accessible easily from your mode of transportation to check out. So we'll have to think this through. This is a challenge. And also there's the issue that was raised a moment ago in the chat about, will we include eating and drinking establishments, businesses? And this is something we're frankly kind of debating back and forth, because they constantly change, as opposed to historical sites, for example, or trails, or parks, or other facilities like that, boat ramps. So we appreciate your feedback about that. It's always a challenge to get the stuff in there and then to maintain it. That's one of the issues. So if you have any ideas, put that in the chat too. That would inform our decision making here, because it is a debated issue.
And I will say, Brewster, if I can, on the current Ohio River Recreation Trail digital guide, we do have restaurants and some of those things in that, and a number of them have gone out of business since we've developed it. And the only way we know that is if somebody notices it on the guide and shoots me an email that says, hey, this is no longer in business.
Right.
And as Brewster mentioned, in our major metro areas, that it's even harder. I mean, there are hundreds within within the county, on both sides of the river in the Cincinnati area, as well as in the Louisville area. So very difficult, I think, to manage and maintain.
Okay, good enough. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Sarah, is there anything else?
So I would say just be on the lookout for our follow-up. We'll have a document, a PDF that kind of outlines some of the types, examples of data that would be helpful for our deeper dive.
Excellent, excellent. And of course, by the way, on that restaurant and hotel and other piece, we want to drive people to the existing convention and visitors bureaus, to the city's websites, where they have, in most cases, all of this stuff available. We don't want to duplicate what you already have spent time and energy building up for the visitors to your community. So we need to work into this easy ways for people to go directly to what you all are doing every day to attract people and direct them to the amenities in your community. Okay, so let's keep moving on. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Chris. Excellent work. And please do follow up with Sarah. You can see her email right there. Note that it's humannature.cc. It's not a typo. It's not com. It's cc. So please write her down and think about who is the GIS person in your community who you can send her an email with that person's name and email address. And then Sarah can follow up directly with that person with your permission. Good. So moving right along, let us go to our colleague, Frances Manone, who's been with this project for 3 years now, mostly as an incredible volunteer, having paddled Cincinnati to Louisville multiple times. And she's a great sport and has a lot of professional experience in this field, and works closely with Kellogg and with Human Nature, but has her as part of the Frost, Brown and Todd law firm doing consulting work throughout the Midwest. So Frances, you're on.
All right, so I've got the fun, meaty stuff, which is part of the braid. And I think what's so great about the work that the Ecology and Human Nature teams have been doing is, if people think about a river trail, they think something super linear and it's defined down one asphalt strip, perhaps, or one river that has borders on either side. But the work that the Human Nature and the Ecology teams have done have really helped to demonstrate on the back of the OKI digital guide, but also the Braided network aspect of their work really gets to how useful and how broad the trail can be inside your own community. And so we've gotten all this far without on the backs of volunteer work and grassroots organization from the jump. And so we want to create a sustainable organization moving forward, but how we got here was through a grassroots effort of dedicated volunteers who have spent a I couldn't even begin to calculate the amount of man hours that were spent on the framework that has gotten us this far, including the work that has been done with the National Park Service and the award-winning digital guide creation, all of which was done on the backs of an organization that is run by volunteers at the moment. And we have all of you are exemplary of our great partners that we have that are partners to the organization, as it were, right now. And that is all a huge amount of enthusiasm that we want to tie together. And what I would say that Chris Manning was talking, and the Ecology team or Human Nature team talking about their braided network. One of the braids of this network is the organizational development underneath it. So over the course of since our summit, what we've been doing is doing an analysis. As you've heard now, we are now partnered with, our organizational structure has shifted so that we are a 501c3, which enables us to do a boatload of other things we wouldn't necessarily have access to. We do have an adjacency that is an organization that we're formulating around the Ohio River Way Coalition. And so inside the Ohio River Way, there, as Brewster alluded to earlier, the Ohio River Way organization has been around for a while, but there are a couple different projects that the Ohio River Way works on. One, the main project is the Ohio River Recreation Trail, now newly renamed. We would like to reformulate the meetings that have been going on throughout the region in a more formalized manner, monthly meetings, and bring people to the table in a dedicated seat. So if we're missing someone from, say, I don't think we'd be missing someone from Portsmouth, but let me just say, if we're missing someone from Portsmouth, if we assign a seat to the table, we'll be able to recognize, hey, we need Portsmouth here, and we need Madison here, et cetera, et cetera. So we have done an analysis of the existing partners, and Brewster's rundown at the top was great. We've got a smattering of different organizations that are interested in what we're doing. And so there has been an effort to categorize who all those partners are. We did a study on the baseline of how much investment's been going on inside using the existing resources for the corridor, so that we could essentially shine a light down the river from Portsmouth to the other side of Louisville to examine exactly how much of our outdoor recreation resources that are available as Americans to us, and how much of that really goes to the river corridor. And in doing so, we've created a baseline of investment. So as we move forward with the organization, and year after year after year, we can look back on the amount of spend that was done starting when we formulated the Ohio River Way and moving forward. And we are excited about formulating a membership structure, and I was alluding to that with the Ohio River Way Coalition, but the membership structure is really the framework for which we would have those seats at the table would be brought together for the Ohio River Way Coalition. For the future, we want to be the voice of the river. The Ohio River for years has seen disinvestment for many different reasons, but partially because there were so many different organizations, nobody really took ownership of it in the way that we really want to take ownership of it for the 3 states that we're focusing on now. So these are goals that were developed with the National Park Service. There's much more to this, but I wanted to be able to fit it on one slide. So these are some of the goals that were developed over the course of the last few years with the National Park Service RTCA program. And then moving forward, as I said, formulating the Ohio River Way Coalition, we would love to make the organization sustainable. And by sustainable, I mean organizationally sustainable, by way of having staff that could work specifically on the issues and the mission and the vision of the Ohio River Coalition. We're going to continue with our efforts with the with the routing of the trail and the enhancements of the braid through the digital guide, and really making the trail itself come alive, figuring out specifically where the trail is, but making the trail come alive. We want to draw more resources to the region. There are a number of different opportunities that are available now that weren't available before, but also weren't available before because of other reasons, but also because we weren't a comprehensive organization of 3 states, but that do support regional efforts. And so we would love to bring more resources to the table in that way. And as I said, becoming a sustainable organization from a development standpoint, from an organizational standpoint by 2024. So I have the drier piece of the presentation, but all of which is very important. You can't have a braid without having a backbone. And we want to make sure that all of what we bring to the community, we can continue to bring year after year after year after year. And by enhancing our organization, we can do that for the community. We can ensure that we can continue to do this into the future. So I'm going to turn it back over to Brewster and David to guide us through a discussion, and also invite you to join us as we take the organization from one step to the next.
Well, thanks, Francis. Appreciate it. We will have an opportunity to have some additional conversation in just a moment about what you just presented, as well as the other items. But let me just move on ahead. We have 4 quick little items, and then a presentation that's short as well from David about our launch paddle. We're going to do a paddle from Portsmouth all the way to Louisville at the beginning of June, and David will describe that and the role that you all could play with that. But here's the deal. We would love to have each and every one of you who's on this call. You are the A team of this project. You're the folks who we picked personally, every single one of you. We vetted the list and we crossed people off and added folks, and you ended up being the A team. That's why we invited you. So you are the folks who we hopefully can encourage to become active in regular meetings, whether they're monthly, bi-monthly, we can work that out. But we would like to have you all be the charter members of our Ohio River Way Coalition. We want to have every community have a representative. We want to have every major organization that's represented here today have a seat at the table to help us to think through how we move forward on this project and really take advantage of it for the benefit of all of our communities and for the health and recreational enjoyment of all the citizens and visitors. So here's the deal. What we'd like you to do now, this is like we're pushing you up against the wall, okay? Put in the chat that you're in, that you would like to be part. It doesn't mean you have to come to every meeting, whatever. It just means we invite you and that we hope you will give us your best thinking. And if there's somebody on your staff you'd like to assign to this project, that's fine. But we really need to have the park districts, the nature conservancies, the land trusts, the watershed organizations. We need our federal partners and state partners. We're so grateful so many of you were on this call. We need you at the table as we develop and think this through. Okay, so we haven't figured out when to meet. Obviously, they'll be by Zoom, so we're not talking about you all coming to tons of meetings because we respect your time. We want to make this efficient and effective. And one of the first things we will do is share with you a proposal about how we develop a membership structure. You know, frankly, we need to raise money and we need to have it, however, the threshold be very, very accessible for every entity, whether you're a town of 950 people, a nonprofit that has a $50,000 budget, or you're Louisville or Cincinnati, right? But we do need to raise some basic resources and we can't depend on foundations. But our goal is by 2024 to be self-funding. But that's only going to happen if we provide value to you and you can justify the expenditure and the investment and the return you all get from what we can help you do that you already want to do, but we can maybe help you do it faster and more effectively. That's the goal. So please put in the chat if you're in. That'd be marvelous. Thank you very much. And I see that Jack Sutton, the Oak Heritage Conservancy, who has a brand new position, the Oak Heritage Conservancy. Jack, thank you very much. And I'd like to point out, many of you know that Jack has been for 2 years now, the co-chair with the two of us, David and me, of this project. And now he's taken this new position. Jack is needs to step back a bit, which we respect. And thanks, Jack, for all of your help and work. Amazing. So number one. Number two, we're going to be constantly updating our website with we'll be putting a new digital guide as we develop it further there. Our events calendar is building out. It takes a lot of time, but we have like 40 events from different communities. I've asked a number of you to send me your annual event listing. We want to have the master calendar of at least the major events by all the river communities up and ready to go by the 1st of April. So go to our website, look at the events page, see what's already there. If there's any problem, let me know. But there's a separate link for adding your events that you have scheduled. We want to promote them. We may do a printed piece as well. These are all the amazing events, some of which I mentioned earlier on. And we're in the process of developing a separate page for every community that will have the key information with links to your websites and your special events, et cetera. And lastly, we'll start developing theme tours. So if you want to take the Underground Railroad theme tour, going through New Richmond and Ripley and other communities, if you want to take the tour for Native American culture and history and sites, we're working closely with the Archaeological Research Institute in Lawrenceburg. They're marvelous. They're going to help take the lead on that piece. So we'll develop these theme tours people can take for 2 or 3 or 4 days and spend money in your communities. Next, I mentioned earlier, starting dialogue with Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio Departments of Natural Resources and Tourism to help us think through, do they have resources that can be put into developing and placing signage, not just small signs like we saw on the screen, but perhaps kiosks that are more informational that can be put at the major boat ramps and key trailheads, deal with safety and orientation about where you are and where you could go. And finally, we intend by November to apply to the Department of the Interior through the National Park Service for national designation as an official national recreation trail. And that's a big deal. And it gives us national status. the ability to use the National Park Services logo even more than we already are authorized to do. But it would put us on the national map as an official national recreation trail. I want to make sure you know we're working on that, and that's going to require every community to write us a letter of support, pledging to maintain your boat ramps and other facilities, et cetera. So we'll let you know more about that. So the next and last thing on our presentation schedule here is, and we're on schedule actually, is David Wicks talking about what he loves, which is paddling on the Ohio, with the idea that we have this kickoff at the beginning of the season in June to launch the new rebranded Ohio River Way, coming through your communities as if we're a presidential tour for a campaign. And I'm the advanced director. So it's going to be a gas. So David, take it away.
Well, Brewster, thank you very much. And between now and the end of May, our team is really going to pull all of this stuff together. So, your input is so crucial over this next 4 months. And we hope this Ohio River Challenge will be a rolling start. It'll be a rolling celebration as we go on down. We have a whole crew of artists, writers, educators, naturalists are going to go in Voyager canoes. This is Tracy Barnes drew this. This was from our trip in 2019, but it's our goal to get the photographers and to get everybody together, as well as people who want to go in their own boat or on a bicycle. And we really have 10 days. We kick off in Portsmouth, and right there at the confluence of the Scioto and the Ohio in historic downtown. And Portsmouth is becoming an outdoor recreation hub for the entire region. The Shawnee Forest, that beautiful waterfront, the bike paths, the new access points on the Scioto. So we're going to kick off there at mile 356 on Tuesday, May 31st, and head on down to Vanceburg, and looking forward to having dinner at the Carter House and interacting with everybody. They also have a whole brand new campground that we'll be checking out. Down mile 408, going down to Maysville, there's our fearless Francis taking a jump into the river off of there. But on our way down, we'll probably stop at Manchester. One of our goals is to stop at every one of the towns. So we'll stop at Manchester and go on down to Maysville and have dinner at O'Rourke's Pub, which we did last time. And then June 2nd, we paddle on down, stop at Ripley, and head on down to Augusta. And certainly we don't want to have a challenge the ferry to a race, but we love that ferry. It's amazing the number of people who get off the boat and will hop on the ferry to go back and forth and come back. But a wonderful dinner at the Beehive. That's one of the things we try to do each town, is to stop in and meet with people and eat your great food and check it all out and have all these artists and writers and experience it. Then we head on down to Thomas More, but stopping at Moscow and New Richmond and just checking out that whole Thomas More biological field station. Then we come on into, we missed Cincinnati. We come on into Cincinnati right on June 4th, which is National Trails Day. And so we hope to have a big celebration. Our trip is broken into really two parts, Portsmouth on down to Cincinnati, and then the second part is from Cincinnati on down to Louisville. So people can register for either one, but most folks, I think, will just be welcoming us and interacting with us on as we arrive into this different towns, just like Rising Sun on June 5th. It's just a beautiful little area. And of course, we'll stop at Lawrenceburg and Aurora as we go on down. I didn't point out this map on the bottom right here, sort of as we go on down the river, you can sort of see where we are. Then we hit Vive, which is one of my favorite towns. Just an incredible place right there. And we stop and we look forward to interacting with people on the street, with the tourism offices, the elected officials. That's our goal. Then we head on down to Madison, and we stay at the new, well, not the new, but the the Madison City Campground and stretch our legs through downtown Madison, and then hop back in the boats and go on down to Westport the next day. You know, one of the things I like to point out is this picture on the right-hand side up here is we go rain or shine. You know, now we're very safe. You know, we've had the boats for about 30 plus years. So we don't go in storms, we don't go in heavy winds, but rain, we paddle on down. And so we'll head on down and have dinner at Knock on Wood. Then we end up, you know, after 277 miles, we paddle into Louisville. We go underneath the East End Bridge and paddle on downtown, and we'll have a nice celebration at the Community River Community Boathouse. You know, we look forward to working with everybody, you know, and really thinking about our crew of artists and writers and naturalists and river rats. And as we visit each river town, we want to be part of it. We want to learn, but we also want to celebrate. As we go forward, we'll certainly be in touch to plan it all out. But with that, you know, Brewster is in charge of onshore logistics. And so I'm going to turn it back to Brewster to have any final comments about our adventure. But once again, if you're interested in going in the Voyager canoes, we'll have a piece on our website to announce that. But if you're interested in going on along by kayak, you know, one of the things that I'm fascinated with is that whole like the M2M. If you haven't been part of it, Norbert's float called Manchester down to Maysville, you know, paddle with us. And so we could do it by the day, we could do it by the time. So Brewster, it's yours.
Thank you, David. Excellent presentation. This is always exciting. Unfortunately, I'm going to be in my truck most of the time, jumping ahead of everybody. But, you know, our intent is to not only stop overnight at the places that David mentioned, but as well as he referred, stopping along the way, whether it's, you know, it's in Ripley or it's in Manchester or it's in New Richmond or in Lawrenceburg or Aurora, going down to, you know, Patriot perhaps and Carrollton. Other locations, if we can work it out with our schedule. It's all weather dependent because we can paddle fast if the river's moving a little bit, the weather's cooperative. But our intent is to, this is one of the things I'll be doing, is to try to be as precise as possible about when we plan to arrive in your town, and try to set up with your leadership some event that helps you promote the assets you have. So maybe you want to get them, you know, the civic leadership together and do a little welcoming event. We can set up a ribbon cutting event at every one of the towns along the way for the press. You would invite your local newspapers and TV and radio, a chance for you to talk about how excited you are about being part of the Ohio River Way on that on the Ohio Riverway, promoting all the things that you have to offer that would attract visitors and also meet the needs of your own residents. So this is one of the one of the agenda items for our meetings of the Ohio Riverway Coalition, in addition to our membership issues and others. So anyway, that's the deal. And it's going to be exciting and fun. So once again, if you haven't had a chance to step up and put yourself into the chat saying you're in on working with and being part of the Ohio Riverway Coalition, please do so now. We'll follow up with you all. Lynn asked in the chat if we will be sending out, and the answer is yes, information about the schedule. We'll try to do that next week to all of you so you all know when David is planning to have us come overnight community or come through by you. So you can start thinking about that. And then we'll be working with each one of your communities to help think through how can this be useful to you in promoting the fact that you are on and part of the Ohio Riverway. Make sense? Okay. So before moving along, there are a couple of people we kind of asked to give us your reaction to this whole doggone thing here. So one of the persons is Rick Greyway, and Rick ran Tall Stacks in Cincinnati for years. He's been the president of the board of the Ohio Riverway. I stepped into his big shoes, and Rick always has a way of framing stuff so articulately. So Rick, are you still with us? I'm sorry, I don't know.
Yes, I'm still here. And like I said before, this is a huge opportunity to brand this section of our country. We're competing against the Great Lakes and the Front Range of the Rockies and the East Coast, West Coast, they have oceans and mountains. And we have this incredible geography here that not many people really understand besides us. And so the hills and the valleys and this beautiful terrain where all these activities, all this history can be communicated is what this project's about. So besides it being fun, it's going to be a great way to brand this part of our country for economic development and talent recruitment and retention. So I'm excited to be a part of this whole initiative.
Well, thanks, Rick, for all you've been doing over the years to help tee this whole thing up, and just appreciate your energetic support. So let me ask a few other people. Andrea Ireland, you're paying attention, aren't you, Ms. National Park Service? So share with us for a moment your reactions to what has been discussed today and where we're going and how you feel about it.
Well, you know, we've been at this for a little while here with the National Park Service and all of the great volunteers of the Ohio River Recreation Trail. And it is really wonderful to see it culminate in this and looking towards the future of what this can be. You know, all those strategic planning and visioning and brainstorming and SWOT analysis, all the work that we've done over the last 2 years really has contributed to this. And it's great to see that you have used everything that everybody who has been participating in those meetings, bringing it all together into this. And I think it's a really exciting new direction, building upon what you've already done, the great work you've already done. I have to agree with Rick that this is creating a regional destination. You know, the tourism and marketing people should really like this. It is bigger than yourself, your individual communities. It's about connecting communities and promoting recreation. And I just think it's going to go far and wide, and there's a lot of work still to be done, but you guys are tackling it, and I think it's amazing. And I love the logo, and I love the concerted strategic planning effort.
Well, thank you for everything you do. You're amazing. We love working with you, and we will in the future, I know. So let me just grab some people that you guys don't know. I'm going to call upon you. Okay. Alan Hurst, Mr. Indiana Trails. What do you think about this, buddy?
Been attending these meetings for a few years now. It's fantastic seeing that the progress that you've made and how this is coming along. We're definitely with the Indiana DNR on board and like to see this promotion of recreation on the Ohio River. I'm a big fan of the name change. I really like the Ohio River Way. I'll be curious to see, do you guys have plans to change the URL for your website?
We'll figure that out. Yes, we will be having a redirect. I mean, the smart people in the room will know how to work on that.
Gotcha. And yeah, the digital map is fantastic. And I'm actually trying to use some of the aspects that you use on your digital map to kind of incorporate that into our own maps here at the state level. I would have a comment as far as, including drinks and food and stuff is a great idea. It's something people look for, but that will definitely be a lot of work to maintain that. So I would absolutely recommend some type of user report thing so you can find out if things change or go out of business. But I'm just really excited about this project and happy to be on board.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for all your engagement. We really appreciate you being an advocate in Indiana at the state level for us. It's huge. Lacey, can you share how you think about this?
Hi, guys. We're excited to be a part of this. I feel like, especially from the tourism standpoint, it's a big win for us to be able to access the databases for river traffic and let them know what attractions and availability we have here in Maysville throughout our county, but also then connecting all of us together so that we're working kind of in one forward motion together for an end goal, I think is always a plus. Anytime we can collaborate, it's just a big win. So we're really excited to be a part of it. And I do agree. I think listing restaurants and shopping is a huge access point from the tourism side. It's one of the #1 things that people are looking for. And also, of course, our outdoor recreation opportunities. But I do agree. I think that at least some kind of yearly submission to keep those updated would definitely be needed. Things change over. That's just the nature of the beast. But I think it's a great tool. And again, we're just really excited to be a part of it. Thank you for including us.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for all you do to be involved with this. Nikki Gerber. No, she's in the car. She can't talk, but Nikki, as I say, owns in Adams County, the Moon Doggy Livery, and another example of a business that just started out along with Shack's Yaks. Chris Shack, I think, is on. Chris, are you on still? Chris? Maybe not. So Brad Bowers, you're rocking it in Anderson Township, right? You guys are really taking advantage of your river presence, right? Tell us what's going on in Anderson Township in Greater Cincinnati.
Yeah, thanks, Brewster. So in Anderson Township, we recently adopted our Kellogg Gateway study, and we worked with MSP on that. And so it was just adopted, and we're starting to work through the implementation of it. But looking at interchange enhancements, streetscape enhancements. In Anderson Township, we have our entertainment district near Coney Island and Belterra and Riverbend. So looking at some sort of rideshare study and, welcome plazas and things like that. And then, additionally, doing a little bit of roadway reconfiguration, flood study. So that's on our website, and I think I had shared that with Brewster. So there were a few GIS items that were included in that, and so we're working on kind of getting that together. And as we start to implement this and we're working with clienters on implementation, would certainly be happy to share more about that.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. So I'm going to call on a couple of other people, and first I'm going to call in on Jim Mallory with the Lewis and Clark Trust, but then I'm going to call on Randy Adam and Anastasia. Okay, so you're on deck, guys. Go ahead. Jim.
Hey, good to see you today, Brewster, and see everybody here. Lewis and Clark Trust looks at the world from about 50,000 feet, so we truly appreciate the regional and the geographic national approach that you're taking with this. It'll bring tourism from all over the nation to the region. And then the other side of that coin is we like to see tourism from the region go to the west and learn what's been going on out there along the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail for the last 40 years and a great success they're already having with it. A couple of quick comments. And Brewster, I apologize. I lost the ability to type in comments for Sarah. There is a website, Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail Atlas. I would urge her to contact Ryan Cooper and chat with Ryan. Ryan developed that whole thing. He's a GIS specialist for Lewis and Clark. And don't try to reinvent the wheel. Use Ryan, and he loves to help with these projects like this. But this is a great way to promote tourism, but also promote health and wellness in the outdoors.
Okay.
Thanks, Brewster.
Great. Thank you very much. We have time for a few more. It needs to be like 30-second wraps. This is like a lightning round here. So, Randy, you're with the Greater Cincinnati Convention and Visitors Bureau, Cincy, USA. That's a big deal. What do you think?
This is very exciting. Good morning, everyone. I think as an urban destination, this really helps us move into what travelers are looking for these days, and that's more outdoor recreation as we recover from the pandemic. These are the experiences people are looking for. Additionally, the regional model is something that we've always been dedicated to here in Cincinnati, but extending it all along the Riverway is really good for tourism and good for reaching out to people who have these niches, and that they can do more than just in Cincinnati, that we can connect all of these communities for a very diverse and rich experience. So I think all of that is going to be key to this. We're excited to be part of it.
Well, thank you very much. It's wonderful to have you here. Anastasia, you're you run the Cincinnati Experience, which markets the region nationally and internationally, right? What do you think?
Right. So I pitch stories about the Cincinnati region to national media outlets. And so a couple of thoughts. First of all, just jumping on what Rick was saying about how we compete against the coasts in Colorado and the Great Lakes, and we have such beautiful topography that no one knows about. I would love to find a writer, journalist, outdoors person from a national publication to join us on that Voyager trek. So that's going to be my mission over the next couple of months, to try to find someone to join us and write about this effort. And then second of all, I love what Chris Manning and Human Nature have done with the braided trails, because it just makes the story so much richer, than, all of the different aspects of historic trails by car, by bike, by boat. And I think that just makes a bigger story. I'm also sitting in Anderson, perched above Belterra, and I'm excited about what Brad Bowers just said about what's going on along our riverfront. And I'm curious what that website is that you mentioned.
Okay. Well, you can follow with Brad.
Yeah,
okay.
I put a link to the
excellent.
Our website where you can see the adopted plans.
Okay, folks, we have a few more minutes. Brad, thank you very much, Anastasia and Randy, et cetera. I'd like to turn things over for a second to Mark Long, who's been part of our team. Mark's sort of retired, very experienced journalist. And Mark has been monitoring the chat. And Mark, anything you want to highlight that people have raised questions about or make comments about?
Yeah, absolutely. The response, I would first say, to the Ohio River Way name has been overwhelmingly positive. A couple people a little concerned that it's a little too broad, but overwhelmingly positive. One, nitty gritty question about the guide. What are the mechanics of it? I mean, are we talking about a mobile app? Are we talking about just web-based, mobile web? How exactly are people going to be able to access this? Because the whole point is for people to have access to it as they go down the trail.
Okay.
So a few questions on that.
Excellent. Are there any
Sarah?
questions? Yeah. Sarah, you were asking about Sarah? I'm sorry.
I was hoping she may be able to answer that question.
Oh, sure. So one of the things we will be exploring with between Human Nature and COLAR would be, those application, the digital application, as well as, print, and having a web app is on the task list. So having a digital form to access this digital, the braided trail, the network, the map, is something that is that we'll be exploring in the next phase.
Okay, great. And then a lot of people mention. Go ahead,
Mark. This is Kelly Kolar. Just wanted to say that if people could. Hi, thanks, guys. I know I've been listening in. Sorry, I got blocked out of our own meeting, but because we exceeded 100 people. I was wondering, Mark, if you could ask people to put in the chat if they have apps that they've used before that they think are really dynamic, because we're doing, as you know, part of our discovery with you and with Human Nature. We know for sure we can do a web-based app, which is with QR codes. So all the signs would have QR codes on them, and it would access where you are, and it will show you where you are on the trail. And that's one technology. And we started to look at we've already been doing our own benchmarking, but if people have additional apps that they like that are cultural tourism apps, or things that they think that we should be looking at for great, breakdown of information and celebration and pride. And there's so many great stories to tell that we want to make sure that we can not only use the trail, but that we can also create as much access as we can to the businesses and the cultural tourism assets of the region. So if people could add that in there, that'd be great, because we're starting to explore what technology is going to be the best technology for us to connect to. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a great request. Any examples of like things that you find excellent, please pass those along. And then several people mentioned some really interesting other trails and other assets, and the history behind certain roadways, things like that. I would just encourage everyone to send all of that information, send shape files, send whatever you can to Sarah, so that stuff can be included. And another point that was made was, gathering the data is one thing, and maintaining it, particularly when we're talking about the restaurants and everything like that that change quickly. I would just note that's why Francis and others are working so hard to make sure that we're building a sustainable operation so that that can be done in the years to come. But the point is definitely duly taken. Maintenance is going to be critical here. Yeah, I mean that's there's a lot of specific questions about the mapping and so on, but that was that's sort of the gist of it. One person noted that a UNESCO World Heritage Site designation is coming for some of the mound building sites along the trail, which is great. It'll be great to include that. But I just encourage everyone, send that stuff to Sarah. I mean that's the critical thing here, to include this.
Thanks, Mark. Excellent. Anything else that popped? Nice job. We appreciate it. Okay, good enough. Folks, we are almost at the end. We have time for just one or two more really quick ones. And let me see who would be interested in saying something here to finish things up. Richard from Indiana Trails. Would you like to say something quick? Because you guys are at the heart of the trail development in that state. Are you still on, Richard?
Thank you. Thank you, Brewster. We at Indiana Trails actually are the coordinator for the American Discovery Trail across southern Indiana. And one thing I would note, this is all exciting and wonderful. I'd like to have the American Discovery Trail included, but one thing to note is that you were talking about National Recreation Trail. We're trying to get a new, there's a House Resolution 4878 to create a new trails category called Discovery Trail, and the American Trail would be in there. And I would ask anybody to contact their congressperson and say, please advance and support House Resolution or HR 4878. This is whatever state you're in, please do this, because the more Congress people who support 4878 is going to be beneficial to all of us in the long run.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Jack Sutton, are you available to have some closing comments here as our outgoing co-chair, my friend?
Hey, yes. Congratulations to the entire team. This is phenomenal. The amount of progress that has been made since not only October, but really for the last several years. Hats off to Brewster and David, Francis, everyone, and our friends at the National Park Service. We got to give a shout out to Andrea and Russ for all they've done, and hopefully we'll continue to do for Ohio River Way. Great job.
Thank you, buddy. And we'll all be watching you as you take the Oak Heritage Conservancy, if that's correct, to the next level. Right? Great. David.
One final comment for me. It's just so exciting. And Francis did mention the monthly meetings. And I certainly hope people on this call, because as Brewster said, we went out and recruited you to sort of help us think through this process. And we hope you do continue on, and we'll be in touch with that. But if you want to represent your community, if you want to represent sort of an aspect of the trail, a bicycle or hiking, or put your name in the chat and we'll follow up with you. It's a important deal. Our first meeting will be in March, and as Brewster said, you don't have to come to everyone, but we really need that systemic input.
We need the A team on the case. The A team on the case. Right. So David, thanks very much, and all of our presenters. We are exactly at 10:30. I can't believe it. We stuck to the schedule. And I apologize, there was a lot of stuff being thrown at you, but the feedback we got from the chat and from what you said personally has been extremely valuable, and we can't thank you enough. This is exactly what we wanted to get out of this meeting. So we'll be in touch with you all moving forward, and just can't thank you enough for your engagement. Look forward to working with you to make something big happen for this region and each of our communities along the way. Okay, folks, that's it. You're welcome to stay on the line. Those of us who organize this will be doing a little debrief. We can continue to talk with anybody who'd like to, if there are any specific questions or comments people have. But this is the end of the official meeting. But again, we welcome anybody who would like to linger. And if it were in the evening, we all have a beer together, okay? At least virtually. So thanks once again, folks. Bye. Until next time.